Andy Katz here with a March Madness men's basketball selection committee update on Saturday morning. Pleased to be joined by NCAA Senior Vice President Dan Gavitt. Dan, a big day Saturday during Champ Week. Always is a big day. First of all, thrilled that we're here after not being able to be in this position a year ago. So it's been 2 years since we've been in this position. But there's some news to get to first. Obviously, Virginia and Kansas had to withdraw from their conference tournaments. Duke as well. Virginia and Kansas have both put out statements that they intend to try to obviously play in the NCAA tournament. They're working out their own issues after having a COVID issue. What are the parameters for when the committee needs to know whether or not a team can participate in the NCAA tournament?
Well, first, Andy, we're heartbroken for those players not to be able to finish their conference tournaments. I know how devastating that must be for them, and obviously hopeful that they'll be fine and be able to participate in the NCAA tournament if they're selected. Every team coming to Indianapolis will have to produce the 7 days of daily negative tests in order to clear the medical protocols to come into Indianapolis. They'll then have 2 negative tests upon arrival within 12 hours or so before they can start preparing for their first games. So we're still gathering information from any impacted institutions. Communication's been great. We have a deadline of 11 o'clock tonight, Saturday, for teams to attest to their eligibility and availability to play in the tournament, to start the tournament on time. And once we have all that information complete from anyone that could be considered in the field, the committee will be able to address that. At this point, we have not eliminated any team that's a potential at-large team from consideration. There's still a pathway to having all teams participate in the tournament, potentially. So we're remaining hopeful and optimistic that that will continue to be the case over the course of this weekend.
So to be clear, Team X, if those players, staff, part of their 34, were negative for 7 straight days, they could arrive in Indianapolis, and then anyone who was either positive or contact tracing who still had to go through that period and then 7 days of negative testing, that individual or individuals could at some point rejoin the team in Indianapolis. Is that true?
Yes, that's correct. We've had that protocol in place for some time now, anticipating that this could happen. Unfortunately, you could have someone who is positive and would be in isolation. That period would be a minimum of 10 days. They'd have to be cleared by their team physician and local health officials where they're coming from. But once they cleared that 10 days and were released by those local health officials, they could travel into Indianapolis. They would not be subject to testing as a recently positive individual. Anyone that would have close contact and would be in quarantine would also be able to rejoin the team at a later date with 7 negative tests, as you mentioned. The length of that quarantine period would be determined by those local health officials where they're coming from. It could be anywhere from the 14 days that the CDC recommends on down to 7 days if the local health officials there where they're coming from accept that as a quarantine period, again, with 7 negative tests before they arrive in either case.
All right, so let's shift to the teams that are arriving or have arrived. Cleveland State won its tournament in the Horizon League in Indianapolis, in one of the venues actually that'll be used. So they've been here actually, I think, the longest. The Big Ten teams, in my reporting, all the teams that already lost in the Big Ten tournament are staying here except for Purdue, which is just up the road, and then they'll rejoin. But how many teams are actually arriving on Saturday?
We have 11 teams that are coming into Indianapolis today on Saturday, Andy. The automatic qualifiers from the conference tournaments that completed this week. So that's exciting. It's unusual, obviously. Teams never arrive in the site of where the the NCAA tournament is being played prior to Selection Sunday because they don't know definitively whether they're in the field or if they're AQs, and they don't know where they're going. So we're ready to start welcoming teams and start their experience here in Indianapolis, their March Madness experience. We'll have a lot more that will come in tomorrow, of course, when 15 different AQs are determined today in conference championship games. So we'll have all those teams start to come into Indianapolis tomorrow. And then, of course, the balance will come in on Monday after 6 o'clock on Sunday's Selection Sunday show on CBS.
All right, so when I spoke with Mitch Barnhart, the Kentucky Athletic Director and the chair of the committee on Saturday, he told me that the committee was up to 33 teams in the field. Where is the committee on Saturday morning in terms of number of teams in the field?
Committee put 6 more teams in last night, which means there's 39 at-larges in the field. That may seem confusing to some because we know that the at-large pool is only 37. However, there are some teams in that pool of 39 at-larges that will become automatic qualifiers by winning their conference tournaments today or tomorrow. We're probably a little ahead of schedule. That was intentional, I think, by Mitch Barnhart, the chair, to get ahead and make sure we were prepared to deal with any unusual circumstances that may present themselves today or tomorrow, and have the time to be able to deal with that. The committee will still have to select anywhere between 3 and 7 teams as at-large teams based on results of conference tournament games are going on today or tomorrow. So there's still room for teams to make it into the field. The goal is to have the entire field selected by tonight, by the end of the working day tonight, so that tomorrow the committee can focus on finishing seeding and bracketing.
So of the games on Saturday, there are actually 2 conferences with 2 teams in those championship games that weren't being considered for at-large pools in any bracketologist, and those are Georgetown in the Big East and Oregon State in the Pac-12. So taking those 2 teams out, how many other teams are being considered for possible inclusion into the field as at-large schools?
The under consideration board has 15 teams in it right now. So of those teams, there are some that are still playing that could win their automatic qualifier by winning their conference tournament. And like I said, otherwise, anywhere from 3 to 7 of those teams could still be selected out of the 15 under consideration.
And lastly, Dan, how will the committee sort of put aside the first 4 out in terms of contacting those teams at some point to let them know that, if they want to play in the NIT and they could end up being potential replacement teams?
Well, we'll release tomorrow night as part of the selection show with those first 4 teams out. The last teams not selected for the field. We know that those will be replacement teams. So they will be prepared to come in within 48 hours. That's the window of opportunity for replacement teams to join the field. And if they've chosen to participate in the NIT, they will also be number 1 seeds and be bracketed in the NIT. So they'll know they'll be preparing for a game. The only thing they'll know is it'll be an NIT game for Monday and Tuesday. And should they be called up to the NCAA tournament, they'll obviously change their scouting report, focus on a team in the NCAA tournament field, and come down to Indianapolis. So very different experience this year, of course, as the whole season has been. But as you mentioned when we started, it's just so encouraging to get past yesterday's, historic anniversary of when the tournament was canceled last year and be talking about teams arriving today and Selection Sunday tomorrow and games starting on Thursday in the first 4. It's a very exciting week and can't wait to welcome all these teams to Indianapolis.
Yeah, I know all of us just can't wait to hold that bracket in our hand late Sunday night. All right, Dan, appreciate it. We're going to a long day on Saturday. Thank you. Stay safe.
Thanks, Andy. Be well.